V'shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzeach. Shabbat Shalom. We wanted to talk about the Shema Yisrael, which is located in this week's Parsha, Parshat Ekev. What a glorious and treasure trove. It says, Hishamru lachem pen yiftel levavchem. The Torah warns us. He says, be careful that your heart shouldn't go astray. V'sartem. And if you go away from the Torah, then you're going to go v'sartem v'avatem elokim acharim. You're going to go do idol worship. And then God is going to get mad, and God forbid there's going to be a famine and no rain. So if you look at Rashi, it says, beautiful Rashi. I recommend everybody see this Rashi on the side. Pasuk Tet Zayin, chapter 11. It says, Kevan shetiyu ochlim v'savim. He says, when you overeat, then you start kicking and overindulging, you forget God. V'sartem. You're going to go away from the Torah. And when you go away from the Torah, you're going to go and attach yourself to false gods. And David HaMelech says, if you banish me, throw me away from your holy land, then I'm going to go do, God forbid, idol worship. Because if I can't learn Torah in a holy environment, then I'm so close and vulnerable to idol worship. So Rosh HAYESHIVA Zatzal, Rav Weinberg, said something so mind-boggling important, and I want to bring a proof to this from the Gemara in Shabbat on two different occasions. Rosh HAYESHIVA said just because a person goes a little bit away from Torah, there should be a big gap between that and becoming an idol worshiper. But what the Torah is saying, that a fascinating reality, that Rosh HAYESHIVA Zatzal, Rav Weinberg, said that a human mind, we always have to fill it up with Torah. A human mind can never stay empty. It has to be obsessed with one thing. With something. If you do something productive, that's fine. But if you don't do something productive, which the only thing that can be productive for a Jew, there's no other path for us, ladies and gentlemen. That was Tisha B'Av. It's not like we have multiple choice, A, B, or C. If we don't follow the Torah, God forbid, there's terrible death and destruction. As the Shema says, God is going to get angry and there's going to be a famine. There's not going to be any water. So it's so scary that what the meaning of Rashi here is that once our goal is not to learn more and more Torah, but there's other goals, right away it's a slippery slope that we're going to eventually end up in idol worship territory. And we see this throughout history, that the Jew always, since we have a holy soul and we have so much potential, if we don't use it for Torah, something productive, then we do it for destructive, like communism, and people get obsessed. Avodah Zarah, false religions, means false goals. That we see Jews throughout the history, all the different isms like communism, and they're going to be at the forefront of the most liberal and modern things. It's only because their soul yearns for something greater than themselves. The mind can't be empty. It needs to do something great. It needs to do something. It's more sophisticated than just materialism. And when you don't fill it up with Torah, it ends up very destructive and worrisome things. And there's a strong proof to this we see from the Daf Yomi. We just read it last week. It says Kuf Mem Zayin. It says Amar Rabbi Halbo, Chamra de Pogronita, the most luxurious and delicious sweet wine in the world was from this city called Pagronita. And Maya de Dimios, there was another hot springs in the city of Diomsat. This caused, that the Gemara here says, it caused that Kipchu Asaret Hashavatim Israel. It caused 90% of the Jews to be lost. And if you look at the Gemara, it says that this wine was so tempting and addicting that what happened is 10 out of all the tribes besides Binyamin and Yehuda became addicted to these hot springs and this wine. They became alcoholic. They didn't learn Torah anymore. And then they became, God forbid, idolatrous. And the Gemara says even one of the greatest rabbis in the Talmud, Rabbi Lazar ben Arach, went to this place because he became addicted to these luxuries. He forgot all his Torah learning, and then the rabbis had to pray for him. Then the Gemara we just learned yesterday in Daf Yomi, Daf 151 in the Bavli says some people, their whole lives is just like a holiday. Those people are going to have a rude awakening when they're after every single luxury. It's good to take vacation, but if every day of your life is a vacation and just having fun, then that you're going to end up totally so slippery, slopey, far away from the Torah that it's going to end up in idol worship. And we see this. That's why even in the summer, I think this message, I think it's a divine providence. It's Hashkacha Pratit that we read this Parshot in the Shema in the summer. We have to be so careful. Because it says, Azveni Yom Yomayim Azvecha. The Yerushalmi says, if one day we forsake learning Torah, God forbid it's going to have a repercussion. There's no vacations in Torah. If we forsake the Torah one day, the Torah forsakes us and says, go away from me for 2 days. So may we realize how dangerous it is never to waste time and never do anything counterproductive. Because once our goal is luxury and other things, we become indulged and trapped. Then the next step is idol worship, far, far away in a place that we never imagined we could go. And that's the story of Jewish history. Small mishaps lead to big slippery slopes where we end up totally foreign, away from God. May Hashem save us to always do productive, our mind to always be occupied with productive Torah thoughts and mitzvah. And therefore, that's what the Torah is saying.